Hey guys, welcome back. So we're outside today. It is a beautiful 60 degrees. It's warmer than what we've had for a long time. Snow's finally all gone. Hopefully nothing comes back, but in Wisconsin you never really can tell. So we're out here today. We're going to do some deadheadings, trim back some of our perennials, get everything ready for everything to come up for spring. And then we're going to pick up, we have a ton of sticks in the yard. We're going to clean up the garden and see what else we can come up with to try to get everything ready to go. So I'm going to take you along with me. I got the boys outside with me, so let's get started. All right, so we're out here with our black raspberry patch. This is wild. This was not planted. So what we actually want to do is trim all this back. We only want about 3 or 4 strands per plant, and anything that's old wood or dead wood we want to trim back and get rid of. Try to create a little bit more space and try to use only the young vines. We also have a couple trees in the back or bushes that are all dead. So we're going to try to cut those out and get those out of here to give us more room. So this will open up and take over this whole area. So we have a huge patch. So let's get started on this. You can see there's a huge difference from the way he started to the way it ended up. Hopefully this will increase our actual production of black raspberries and allow for this area to fill out. Now as for the gloves, I picked these up off of Amazon. They are OZERO Leather gloves. They are cowhide leather. They are puncture resistant and breathable mesh lining on the inside, and I can tell you, I didn't feel one of those thorns come through. Now we're going to move on to trimming back some of our perennials and grasses. We're going to start off with grass. We want to cut this to 4 to 6 inches from the crown itself, and we want to do this in late winter, early spring. Keeping it long over winter will help insulate the actual crown itself to ensure that it doesn't die off. And we're going to clean up some of the perennials. They're already starting to sprout underneath. We're going to trim back our catmint straight to the ground. I can already see some of the new growth peeking through. Now we've got our sedum. We've transplanted this from underneath the crabapple tree over into this area of the garden, and it's really flourishing. Now with sedum, you want to cut everything back and deadhead, cut back all the stems in early spring. But if you need to and you see a lot of growth later in the late spring, you can actually prune it by half again to help control its size. You can see as I'm trimming everything back, the new growth is peeking up from underneath. Now with our Floralberry St. Johns Wort, we cut it back last year, probably a little too much, and it really didn't have the showing it did the first year. So we're going to be pretty lax on it this year. I'm going to let it go and see how it does. And being this is our second year with our 9 bark, you really just need to trim it back to make sure it has enough airflow, and I think it's doing pretty good so far. And the last thing over here is our laced up elderberry. And you really aren't supposed to do much in the way of trimming for the first couple years, and with the laced up, they're pretty low maintenance. You don't have to do anything, just cut back any dead wood that you end up seeing. Now for the rest of our elderberries, you're not really supposed to do much until they're over 2 years old, so you just let them go and you don't really do much of the pruning. And when you do prune, you do it in early spring. So right now we're going to leave it alone and probably do our pruning next year, give them a little bit more time to grow. Really the same thing goes for our Forsythia. We really aren't going to do much. This is our first year with it in the ground, so we're just going to let it go. We're not going to do any trimming, and as you can see, it's already starting to bud and show its colors. Next up is our smoke bush. This has gotten pretty big since we planted it. It's probably 4 times the size of when we planted it. And we're just going to allow it to continue to grow. If we really need to rejuvenate it, you can trim it back to 6 to 8 inches from the base and it'll start over. But for us, we are going to let it run and eventually start trimming and shaping it into the shape of a tree. One of the issues we're having right now is this is our Tiger Eye Sumac. It has doubled in size since last year. I have a feeling it's going to double in size again. Now, we don't know if we're going to keep the Cotoneaster. That's all of these that are surrounding the parking slab. But this one's starting to encroach on the Tiger Eye Sumac, which is one we want to keep. We're not sure what we're going to do with the Cotoneaster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one out. So this one has room to grow and we can plant some more bulbs and spring plants here in the fall, or put another annual or some annuals or some other perennials in here in this place. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this Cotoneaster to make a little bit more room. As you can see, it really opens up the space, and you can see all of our bulbs are starting to come up from everything we planted last fall. I'll leave a link for that video above. These are our hardy pampas grasses. They get to be gigantic, and just like all of the other grasses, in late winter, early spring, you cut them down to about 4 to 6 inches from the crown. So we're going to toss everything onto our burn pile, and hopefully in the next week or so we'll be able to actually burn this. Right now we're under an advisory because of how dry it is, so we're not going to set any fires. Now we're going to break down our spool. We got this about 2 years ago, and when we picked it up it was already starting to rot, but since then it's just deteriorated even more. So we're going to break this down and toss this right on top of everything else on the burn pit. With all the trees in the yard, we do have a lot of fallen debris and sticks, so we're going to start cleaning that up, pick it up, so when we do start to cut the grass, everything is good to go. But first, hey, you got tons of sticks all around, just pick them up. Huh? Bush weed. You're doing a bush weed? Okay. Alright, we're going to move into the garden and take a look at our garlic. You can see the garlic is doing real well. It's already sprouting. It looks like every clove that we planted came up. And now let's take a look at the spinach. This spinach was planted last fall, and it came up, and we did harvest a little bit of it, but now we let it go over winter and it's still kicking, and it's tripled in size since it started to warm up. Now let's get to it and clean up all the debris from the garden and everything was left in the beds over winter. it moving. While doing our cleanup, we found a new friend. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for today. We got nearly everything done we needed. We do have some work that still needs to be completed before spring hits and we start getting stuff into the ground. We do have 2 new beds that we're going to be putting right here. They're going to be about half the size of the beds that we have already in height and in width. They're going to be 8 foot by 2 foot by approximately 15 inches. I'll let you know once we get those up what we plan on using those for, and that's what all this debris is for. Those are going to go as a base layer, kind of a modified hugelkultur that we're going to be using debris in the base because they're so short we don't want to use any wood. But I'll fill you all in when we start building and assembling those beds. Now, as for everything else, we're not done in the garden by any means. We are going to be building some cattle panel trellises. They're going to be arched trellises going between the beds. That'll be an upcoming video, as well as we had a question about the sod compost that we did almost 2 years now. Now, that didn't turn out the way we wanted to last year. I'll give you an update. I will do a reveal on how that turned out and what we plan on using all that compost for. That is going to be a surprise that's coming up. We're hopefully going to be doing a new garden area, but I'll fill you all that in a later date. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment section below. You can reach us on Facebook or Instagram if you have any other questions or want to see what we're up to on a daily basis. And that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.